Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Morari, and I'm the founder of ITKeyMedia. This is our podcast about Central and Eastern European startups that are in pre-Series A stage. And our guest tonight is Krzysztof Malicki, the co-founder of a company from Poland, based in Gdańsk, called Trusted Twin. That's a company that is developing a platform for secure data sharing powered by the digital twin concept. Dzień dobry wieczór, Krzysztof.
Okay, that's dzień dobry wieczór means hello, good evening. So dzień dobry is like good morning, and dobry wieczór is like good evening. So yeah, thanks. And dzień dobry too.
Look, so let's start with a kind of a warm-up on a wide horizon. For those that are not part of the of this new kind of movement, right, and changes in the technology and data cosmos on this planet, what is a digital twin? In a couple of sentences, how would you describe this concept?
Okay, so the concept in general is like it's a virtual representation of any real or abstract object that you can use for many different purposes. You know, the most important one is simulation. So you can have a digital twin of a satellite or a plane, because it is usually easier and less expensive to destroy a virtual satellite or plane than a real one. So if you would like to simulate, to test, then you are simply building a digital twin. But the other, definition can be related to processes and to objects that are used for distributed processes, like, for example, C container, utility meters, user profiles. So kind of a shared and dynamic objects that are crucial for distributed processes involving multiple parties.
Would you agree that digital twin is not a technology, it's a concept, right? So meaning, as far as a technological barrier or technological tool, let's say a tech tool to utilize or to use in practice digital twin concept is possible. This is doable or possible by many different tools.
True, but because this is just an idea, and how to convert that idea into action depends on the the need you would like to solve with the use of that idea. So if you have a city and you want to simulate, for example, a flow of traffic in a city, like red lights, green lights, and so on, then you will use a different type and a different technology for that digital twin than if you would like to simulate or to create a data space for your customers, involving multiple other customers and so on. So the technology is like something that you will use when you want, what is the need, the real need that you would like to implement or to address.
The guy that you mentioned in one of your presentations, I think, Tomasz Tungus, I like him a lot as well for his numerical savvy kind of text and analysis. He said 2020s, this decade, will be the decade of the data. And so just a combination here, decade of the data and digital twin as a buzzword. How do you reconcile these two right now?
Yeah,
meaning digital twin has become a buzzword, you would say, hype, overhyped, or still in the infancy? Yeah.
In fact, every great idea is starting from a buzzword, and then people think about that and convert that into action and into some useful tools and useful, technologies that it can be used. And, going to the question, back to the question you've asked, I think that data is just a new air, so you will breathe data almost everywhere this century. But there are different dimensions in which you can define data that you are dealing with. So the first dimension can be operational data versus analytical data. And in most of the cases, we are talking about analytical data, which is stored in warehouses, so like Snowflake, Databricks, and so on. And this data is usually used for statistical analysis, so optimizations. It's not real time, it's usually historical, and it's like based on data sets or tables, not objects, while operational data is usually like on the granulation of objects, so each object matters. It is usually real time, and it's usually used for process execution, so not for optimization but for execution. And then you have those virtuous cycle when you analyze, optimize, execute, analyze, optimize, execute. So you are using operational data, to generate analytical data, and based on that analytical data, you optimize the process, and then again, operational data, analytical data, and so on. And that's the first dimension. And the second dimension is if you're using that data only for your own purposes, or you're sharing that data with the others. So share or share data. And when talking about sharing, then you can share that data in closed environments, or you can share that data in open environments when everyone can connect. And probably we'll talk about that later. And those open environments are called data spaces. And this is the definition. Sometimes they're called multi-party systems. For example, Accenture is using that term, but in most of the cases, these open environments are called data spaces.
And with this as a key to the first round, which is about the solution, the platform, the product itself, let me ask how you think you will enable the further kind of revolutionizing or adding the data air to our life with your product. In simple words, what are you working on? And I understand that your layer, or the layer that you want to make sure works properly, is the data security. Data security.
We provide security and other stuff or non-functional requirements, but our in fact area is operational data sharing. So we are working with operational data, so objects used to execute processes, and we are working in places where we're talking about distributed processes, so processes involving multiple parties. Because when you are talking about distributed processes, then the objects that you're working on are shared objects, so they are built by multiple partners at the same time. So each partner can add data to such an object, and each partner can use data which is added by the other partners to such an object. So that's why you have to
wait, Krzysztof, let's translate this into a real life situation, okay? So as far as I understand, so let's take, I don't know, one of your verticals, manufacturing, for example, okay? So what you now described in a more abstract, I understand, of course, what you were talking about, but in a more abstract and then translated to down to earth kind of situation. So when you say multi-party, do you mean in a manufacturing facility, for example, you might have some IoT sensors, right? That are gathering specific data about,
not exactly. I will give you an example, like a real client. So we are working with a utility meter manufacturing company, like water meter, heating meter, and so on. Okay, and they are being requested by the market to convert from selling devices toward selling a measurement service, because people don't want to buy devices anymore. They just want to know how much water they used last month. Okay, they just want how much heat they used last month. So they had to build an open environment which involves not only them as the manufacturer of a meter, but also installers, service companies, building administrators, software companies that are developing embedded software for those meters, okay? And then they simply created a virtual representation of each of the meters, okay, which is called a digital twin of a meter. And then from their perspective, they added measurement, which is the data that they can provide. From the perspective of the building administrator requires, for example, address and name of the user, which is GDPR data, so that manufacturer don't want to be responsible for storing or handling that data. But they don't need it, okay? But for example, in the moment when the meter is going to be installed, they simply request access to address, because this is something that is required for the installer to go to the field and install a meter. If the meter generates, let's say, error logs, those logs should be visible to the company that is providing the software, but it should not be visible to the user of a meter, for example, to the building administrator. So as you can see, you have an object which is built from data coming from different parties, but that data should sometimes be visible to the others, sometimes should not be visible. So that's why, and that meter manufacturing company, they don't want to become a cloud-based software development company. Their core business is manufacturing meters. So they don't want to be involved in that cloud infrastructure maintenance and so on. So what we are usually telling such clients is that, okay, you can stay focused on your core while everything else, which is still mission critical because related to data, but not your core, this is covered by our platform. So we provide security, so you can securely exchange data with your partners in that open environment. We provide scalability, so you can put millions of meters there. We provide availability, we provide separation, and we handle all the integrations. So if somebody wants to use the measurement you are adding to that virtual meter, then it can integrate freely, choosing the technology and the technique he wants to use. So that's what we provide. So the place for those cooperating open data sharing environments, which are called data spaces.
Yeah, okay. And how big is the demand for such a architecture, let's say, that you are enabling?
So we have multiple projects that we're working on. When you are talking about that meter manufacturer company, then it is around 1 to 3 million meters on the platform in 5 years. We have another project which is dealing with customer profiles. And we are talking about 12 million customer profiles on the platform. Then we had a project with a company that is manufacturing special purpose shoes for firefighters, for military, for construction workers, and they want to add digital twins to around I don't know, it's like a 200,000 pair of shoes each year. So as you can see, the number of objects that you can have, that we have on the platform, is pretty large. So, but these are usually
why would you need digital? So why would you need digital twin for a shoe, even if it's a special purpose shoe?
Okay, so it was like a nice example of an unusual, let's say, digital transformation process. Because due to the current situation on the market, there is a very high level of employees turnover in construction companies. So they are buying shoes, and after, let's say, 2 months, when somebody decides to work for somebody else, they are like there is an increasing amount of barely used shoes that they cannot use once again because the employee already decided to quit. Okay. So they started to ask that shoe manufacturing company if they can provide shoe as a subscription service. So I am paying for a shoe, but you are responsible for refurbishing that shoe. For example, for disinfection, for changing something that I can prove that I can use it once again according to the health and safety regulations. But to be able to do so, they have to add documents to the shoe, and to add a document to a shoe, you need that like an undeniable link between a shoe and a virtual representation of a shoe. So all the information about that the shoe was disinfected, that the shoe was refurbished, and so on, is stored in that digital twin of a shoe, and you can always check it via checking RFID tag, which is in fact part of the shoe, implanted into the shoe. So that was a nice project, but as you can see, digital transformation can be really surprising.
Oh yeah, indeed.
And we are calling those objects digital twins because they are dynamic in nature. Because if you are talking about objects that are built at the same time by multiple parties, so anyone can add data or can use data, then you cannot have a firm structure of such an object. Because I cannot limit you from adding your data, and you should not be able to limit me from adding my data. So the structure is dynamic, and that's why it is not like a typical row in a database table. It must be an object, and that's in fact kind of a unique value proposition. Because when talking about those other companies, especially those that are coming from the analytical data space, they are usually working with tables. So each row has to be the same. But this is not something that you can force when you are talking about cooperating partners building objects that are, that are built or aggregating data coming from all of them at the same time. So that's why working with objects is a need when you are talking about distributed processes.
And you are not, I mean, data providers, so those multi-layer kind of multi-party sites, let's say, systems. So all the constituent parts and members of these multi-party systems, they retain the ownership, right, or the governance over the data that they provide. This is what's important.
Yeah.
But,
so I am adding my data to the object, but I am not losing control and ownership of that data. I simply can apply rules that are evaluated in real time, and according to those rules, that data is being visible or not to the others.
So I retain ownership, but at the same time, I'm still responsible for some qualities of this data, meaning completeness or reliability or anything else, right? So it's
everyone knows that it is yours. This is your data. Okay, so you are the owners. You are responsible for the quality of data. Yeah, that's true.
Have you had situations where have you had situation by now where one of the party providing their stream of data to this big data, big digital twin data, decide to disrupt the process just because they are like a bad actor and they limit or close or remove their streams of data from this architecture?
That's possible, but from the technical point of view, it should not harm the ability of the rest to execute the process without that partner. Okay, so
provided this is not critical,
that this is not critical because we know whose data it is, and this data is not becoming a part of the system in the way that you are unable to withdraw or to delete it. So you can simply delete your own data. So you will no longer be an entity that is involved in the process, or you will not be a part of that data space. That's possible. But what we are also providing is the ability, we are calling that source of verifiability.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it is related to notarization of events and documents, because sometimes you have to, you may disagree with somebody else if something really happened or not, and we are using for that blockchain notarization. So you can, so that's why I'm saying we are not source of trust, but we can provide means that you can use to verify if something happened or not, or to verify the content of an event or a document.
Oh, yeah. And in some contexts, for example, manufacturing, this could be really costly, mistakes or costly disputes and so on. Interesting. We'll come back to blockchain in a second. What about various data types? I understand that these systems, multi-party systems, are composed of different streams of different data types as well, right? Like, I don't know, JSON, media files, and pictures maybe sometimes, whatnot.
In fact, a single object can store or is related to 3 different types of data. One is a ledger, which is more or less responsible for storing the state of an object. And you can think about a ledger as about kind of a JSON document with entries, and each entry has a value, and there are properties of that value. For example, visibility. Okay, and this is something that you can change pretty easily, and the change will be reflected in real time in, for example, the perspectives via which other parties are looking at the object. Okay, then you can add any type of a static file to an object, like a picture, a report, an Excel file, and so on. And the third type of data which is associated with objects is these are identities, because everyone can use different identities to identify the same object. For example, when you are talking about a car, you can use a registration plate, but if you are, for example, a leasing provider, then you can use like a number of the agreement. Then you can use a VIN number when you are working with your service company, but still, this is always the same car, but you can use different identities when looking at that card from different perspectives. And we are also handling those different identities, which again can be private or public, and to which you can also apply those visibility rules. So not every identity is visible to each participant of the data space.
So do you help onboard data of different structures and types and so on your platform, I understand, or this is automatic?
Okay, so this is kind of a new concept, like the concept related to data sharing powered by digital twins. So what we are doing is that we are at the beginning, when we are starting working with a new potential client, we are offering free consultation about the architecture, about object modeling. So you can use our LinkedIn just to, for example, contact me directly, or our Calendly link just to have that free consultation, how to use the platform and so on. And when the architecture is ready, when you know how to model the objects, then using our platform is pretty easy, as this is an API first type of platform. So you are simply calling APIs, those different methods, and you can do, because we provide open source libraries for multiple languages. So if you are using Java, you can use Java library. If you are using Python, you can use Python library. If you are using JavaScript or any other language, then you can work in the language that suits you best. So that's what we do. And then you can simply handle those objects, create them, define visibility rules, and so on. That's pretty easy, and that's all API based. Because our platform is in fact platform for developers, not for those end companies. We are usually working with IT departments of large companies or software companies that are providing solutions for the end customers. And from that perspective, this must be easy to those developers. And in most of the cases, they are able to provide proof of concept in less than a month, and to design like a project in such a way that there is no initial investment, so they can provide return on investment in less than 6 or 9 months, like a very fast development, because this is like ready to use, no initial investment, and entirely usage based.
Okay, let's come back for a second to your use or implementation of blockchain. How you use blockchain and how reliable or how effective it is, because we know all the possible hassles related to blockchain, like not quick enough, no, like resource intensive, should I say, and so on.
You were asking me today about buzzwords. So to what extent blockchain is a buzzword, and to what extent it is a technology that is widely used by different companies. So you can think about blockchain like about a technology that can provide a democratized source of trust. But blockchain, on the other hand, is very expensive, because storing 1 megabyte in a blockchain would cost up to $10,000. So that's very expensive. Of course, you are not storing entire files. You are usually storing like very short hashes of files just to be able to prove. But still, not every company is willing to pay for that. But from the perspective of a typical client, it is a distributed and democratized way to notarize events or documents. So this is how you should understand blockchain. We're talking about notarization functionality and the source of verifiability on our platform.
Just to make sure I understand, 1 megabyte, to store 1 megabyte on the blockchain would cost 10,000.
Around 10,000, up to 10. It is maybe from free to 10, but it depends on the blockchain you will choose. Okay, but it is very expensive. Of course, there are techniques to to store just a little amount of data to notarize a lot of events, but still you must know that it is expensive.
And this amount is per what period of time?
Forever. If you will add something to blockchain, that it will stay there forever. That's the idea of blockchain, because you are adding just a new block to the chain, and it stays there forever.
Which frozen and represents some part of the history.
So that's why it is the source of verifiability, because anytime in the future, you can go back and check if that block is holding the information that will allow you to prove that something really happened, or the content of what you added there.
So I think, covered already most of the features of the solution that you're providing. What about the commercial side right now? How would you describe your achievement successes on the commercial side? How many implementations you had, maybe number of clients, and commercial terms for the service and so on? Yep.
So we started roughly 2, maybe 2.5 years ago. We've managed to raise our first pre-seed round at the end of February. So we raised 1 million. We offered our version 1 of the product at the end of maybe June, July, and now we have first paying customers, and we have 6 more customers working on the product, because in fact, all those products are typical IT products. So from POC to ready product it is usually around 6 to 9 months. So we have 1 paying customers, 6 more customers developing products on the platform, and we have really multiple customers in the selling queue. But that's why we are now raising a seed round, because we need to build our sales department, because now we are mostly focused on founder-led sales, and we are almost unable to process all the leads now. So this is why we are raising, and we would like also to invest in going multi-cloud, because our platform is currently based on AWS. We would like to port it to Azure, so Microsoft Azure, and we would like also to standardize, to make the platform compliant with as many security standards as possible. So starting from SOC to ISO to 27001 and so on. So this is what we are planning to do in the near future.
Okay. Some plans and ambition on both like R&D, but also on the sales and business development, commercial kind of part. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we see, because we have like a pretty large interest in Europe. We are working with EY, for example, with Microsoft directly. In Europe, that there's a difference between Europe and the States, that Europe is generally more regulated. So, for example, in Europe, there is a Data Act coming, which will be implemented probably in the middle of 2024. And this Data Act is a new regulation that is entirely related to data sharing. So you will have the right to know all the data that IoT devices that are being installed in your house or flat are gathering. For example, today you cannot ask what your Roomba knows about you. But after the Data Act is implemented, you should have that ability to ask what my Roomba know about me, and you can even ask to transfer that information to a third party. So, but this is what will be probably implemented in Europe. But at the same time, we see that increasing data awareness in the States, and that is probably more related to geopolitical situation and that conflict between the United States and China. So they don't want to send their data to China anymore. That's why they are starting to think about, okay, where my data is actually going. I mean, the data from devices that I have in my home or house. And that's why we would like also to start a pilot lead generation program in the States. This is also what we are doing now.
So relating to what you mentioned earlier, not only the data is becoming increasingly the air our technology breathes, but also a strategic product, right, or strategic resource that every sovereign country will be trying to protect more and more and with more sophisticated.
To benefit from even, because, for example, I will give you 2 examples. One is like on the high level. So one of the of the reasons Data Act is implemented is that Europe wants to benefit from data, which is today coming mostly to the US. Okay, mostly large US companies are, making profit on European data. But on the other hand, when talking about sharing, it's in fact a way to enable smaller players to benefit from big data, because you might be not big enough to benefit from big data. But when you will start sharing your data with the others, you can have together data which is big enough to apply big data analysis. So that's something that is also the reason why people, especially like creating, the entities creating those data spaces, are thinking about data sharing. So if I am just a small, let's say, e-commerce merchant, then my data is usually not big enough to benefit from it. But when I work on a common profile of a customer, which is built from information coming from multiple smaller e-shops, then we together can have data about that particular customers that will enable us to use big data analysis for recommendations, for profiling, and so on. So that's why sharing is today not an option. It's like it's necessity.
And you could say democratizing, you could say in a way, big data, enabling smaller players also to be part of the game.
So that democratizing, but still with the ability to retain ownership, because people are afraid of giving data away. So that's why democratizing is okay, provided I will have the ability to control who have access to my data, the ability to withdraw that data from certain ecosystem if I want to, and so on. So that's why data sharing, that's why data visibility and access management is becoming more and more important. And that's why it is exactly the core of our product and of our platform.
Interesting. As far as pricing right now, what's the current status of your pricing ranges?
Entirely usage-based. And we have 4 price drivers. One is number of objects, so the number of objects on the platform. The second one is the number of events generated on the platform, so each event counts. The third one is storage, so how much data I'm storing on the platform. And the last one is transfer, how much data I transfer from the platforms. And these 4 parameters are the only parameters that are used to calculate the price. And you can start from a free sandbox, so up to 100 twins is for free. And then you have like base models, so you're paying something as a monthly fee, but then you have a lower price for each additional object. But you can start from something that is really for free. And then in most of the cases, when you're talking about mid-size data space, it is usually less than the cost of a single IT specialist or DevOps specialist. So it is always better from the perspective of the end customer. It is always less expensive than building own team, than maintaining own infrastructure, and so on. Because in most of the cases, it is less than a monthly salary of a DevOps engineer. Even if we are talking about millions of objects, it is that's the typical cost of the solution that we provide.
Interesting. Krzysztof, let's move on around to competition landscape. Would you say this is crowded right now, or you're still, as you mentioned, among the pioneers?
In fact, we can say that it is kind of a blue ocean as data awareness is increasing. We are aware maybe of one direct competitor, and this is Vendia from the United States. And this is the company that was established by 2 former Amazon employees. He was responsible for Lambda functions, and she was responsible for blockchain, as far as I remember, in AWS. But in most of the cases, this is the competition is like build versus buy. So most of the companies can still think that they can build something like this from scratch rather than buy a ready-to-use service. But as an unavailability of staff and complexity of systems and in fact cyber threats, these are all increasing. People are converting from, they don't want to build anymore, they simply want to buy, because this is the only way to enable fast POC, I mean proof of concept, and fast return on investment. So this is, I think, the most important competition for us. So build versus buy. But still, there are companies that are, in fact, trying to extend their services from that analytical data space toward operational data space. But these companies are like, for example, Snowflake or Databricks. They are working mostly with tables. So this is not an easy task for them to convert from using tables into using dynamic objects that that can be built by multiple partners. So we see that movement toward operational data and toward data sharing, but this is in most of the cases based on doing something with tables, so with structured data, not with dynamic object of a dynamic structure.
So there's huge effort also to bring this data into table format, right? Or very often it's not possible at all.
Yeah, it should be possible, because when you are talking about using operational data to drive your business analysis and to use this data for analysis and for optimizations, you have to offer a service that converts those dynamic objects into more structured views. And this is exactly what we also provide, because we have two services in that area. One is called indexes, which is used to convert, to build tables of states of those objects. And another one is called time series, which is used to build or to view history of objects in a structured way. But you have to provide that conversion between an object and a table if you want to use that data for analysis. And this is what we do, in fact, as part of the service.
So to recap, the awareness is growing, but so far competition is not that fierce, should I say? Okay.
But this is on one hand nice, but on the other hand, it is a challenge, because, if you're a blue ocean, then you don't have very much of competition at all. But on the other hand, you have to invest a lot in market education.
Trailblazing is difficult, and then when you prove the concept that it works and it's a good business and so on, crowds will follow. Right? Thank you. Yes, I understand. This is the idea that you have. Thank you, Krzysztof. Thanks. Let's move on. Round 3. That's a very quick Q&A here. I mostly focus here on one thing. As every startup in pre-Series A, definitely you are pretty busy businessman, should I say. What are your own personal productivity hacks? And I'm not interested in tools as much as in the way that you're doing things, or you're trying to achieve as much as possible.
In fact, I am trying to divide my day into two parts. So in the morning, I'm trying to work with people, because I like a lot to work with my team, because working with team will allow you to progress fast. When you talk, when you discuss, when you involve team in the entire development process. But on the evening, I need some time for my, let's say, for thinking, for working with documents and so on. So I usually trying to divide my day into those two parts. And another hack is that at the beginning of each day, I am just sitting for a moment and thinking what I will not be doing today. Just to know that during that day, I will spend my time on, let's say, the most important thing, and all the rest can usually wait for the other day. Because the worst what you can do is to try to work on too many things at the same time. So the most important question at the beginning of the day, what I will not be doing today at all. That
Interesting.
Is what I've learned.
And then you give yourself a promise not to do these things that you mentioned in the morning. And how often do you break this promise to yourself?
I am trying to do that not too often, because otherwise it will not work. So of course it sometimes happens if something is really, really important. But I think that 80 to 90% of days I am trying not to break that rule. And that helps, because then you can stay, at least focus a little bit more on that, what's important today. So that's my hack.
Interesting. So the usual approach would be to focus on the few selected things that you want to execute during the day, and you approach this from a different angle, right? You are focusing on what you will not be doing. What's the difference, and why do you think this is more effective? I mean, your approach is more effective.
Yeah, because otherwise you'll have to prioritize, because, okay, this is almost the same question, what 3 things I will be doing today, because this is in fact to answer the question, what the rest I will not be doing. But what is really important is not to try to do everything during the day. So that the most important part of that, technique is to select only a limited set of things that you will be doing during the day. So you can ask the question in 2 different ways. So what I will not be doing, or what I will be doing, but the idea is to have a very limited set of things that you will stay focused on during the day, not to try, to switch from, between many things. So that's why it is important to, to define, the scope for the day. So that is how I would say that. Because otherwise, especially running a startup, when you have to be involved in many different things, you will have to switch between very different issues, and that will, decrease the level of your efficiency. So it is better to say, okay, today I will not be doing that and that. That must wait until tomorrow, for example.
Yeah. Interesting. Krzysztof, I will ask you still this question about the tool. What tool would you recommend, software application or whatever, you would recommend your fellow startup founders?
Okay, so I'm for a startup founder, I'm pretty old, and for me, it is really, a problem, because all those different tools desire your attention all around the day. So you have like Slack, email, SMS, WhatsApp, LinkedIn. And so from my perspective, the ideal tool will be something that will simply allow you to work. And there is too many tools from my perspective. So I would not recommend a single one. I would rather recommend to think about balance in choosing or using all those messaging tools, calendars, I don't know, Notion, and so on. Because if you will not be able to find your own balance, then you will be like bombarded with thousands of different messages coming from different sources, and that's a problem for me. So not a single tool, but if you don't really need a new tool, then don't use it. Try to, to find your own balance. So that's what I would recommend, because from my perspective, there is too many tools, and those, even handling those tools and different messages consumes a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a diet. You suggest a diet. Let's say a data diet suggested by a big data kind of a player.
Because even today, people, because I am trying to discuss with people that are in that data space, and I'm starting to hear today that it is not about big data anymore. It is about right data.
Oh, cool. I like it.
Okay, because if you have big data, it will not solve anything. Then it is much more important to know the right data which you can use to solve a problem.
Cool.
Because people think about, if I have big data, then I can solve everything. It's not true.
Oh yeah, cool.
Because we have too much data, and we are unable to use it in most of the cases.
Cool. Yeah, I like it. It's like if you eat too much of let's say vitamins, it will do bad. I mean, it will give you, bad outcomes and so on. You need just the right balance needed for your body.
Right vitamins, not big amount of vitamins.
Quantity and quality. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, great. Krzysztof, let's move on. Round 4, the company. So the company you said was founded two and a half years ago. In the meantime, you managed
No,
to...
it was founded around, and we started 2.5 years ago. The company was founded around a year ago. At the end of February, we raised our first round. It was 1 million. At the end of July, we introduced our latest product. At the end of September, we had our first paying customers, and now we're raising the seed round.
Mm-hmm. Most of these months were about 2022, basically. This is when we are recording this. And so your founder team is composed of a couple of experienced basically business people, right? Including yourself as a CEO, co-founder, then Marcin Kowalski, Michał Szymański.
Michał Szymański, our CTO, and Jan Wyrwiński, which we in fact with whom we were working together for almost 20 years. Okay, we both had like the experience from IPO on Polish market, and our ambition for Trusted Twin is to build something which will not be regional, but which will be a global company. So that's why we decided to start once again with something that we think have that potential to be an international company.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, Jan has also VC hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his wardrobe, should I say? Is he full-time, fully vested,
yes.
Should I say, time-wise and so on? Okay, cool.
In fact, after we introduced the previous company to Warsaw Stock Exchange, that was in 2011, I decided to work for a few years for the university, and Jan decided to start his own boutique VC. And now we are, gathering together. Now Jan is fully involved in the company, Trusted Twin, and in fact, Jan is responsible for business development and VC relations.
Yeah, interesting. And VC, of course. Now, as far as the wider team, how many people you are right now, and where's the biggest challenge as far as hiring?
We have 9 people, so 4 founders and 5 employees. And of course, what we are, as I said before, we are raising a new round because we would like to invest in sales team plus solution architects. So all that is required to convert our leads into paying customers. And we are also planning to invest in going multi-cloud, so importing to Azure, and in building compliance with standards like SOC 2 or ISO. So this is what we're going to do during the next 6 months, probably. Yeah.
So this round 4, where we discuss the company, is kind of mixed with round 5, which we call Formula F3, funding for the future. You covered already the history. By now, it's almost 1 million of total investment, I understand, and pre-seed round. And let's just mention the investor lineup. Startup Wise Guys, of course.
So we have a pretty, decent set of local, Eastern and Central European investors. So we have FFVC, which is a lead investor. This is a Polish-American fund. So they have offices in New York plus offices in Warsaw. We have Startup Wise Guys from Estonia. We have Presto Venture from Prague. We have Movens from Warsaw. So this is, the set of our VCs. Plus we have 1 family office and few business angels, both from the Valley. 2 from the Valley.
Yeah, from the US as well. Okay, and so this is clear as far as your, let's say, expectations or appetite for the seed round. You said, have you mentioned already the amount that you are raising right now?
Probably not. So we are now raising $3 million, but we are looking for, let's say, investors that will help us to build a global presence. So that's why we visited New York 2 weeks ago, and that's why we visited also London, and we're looking for top, level European or US investors for the seed round. Mm-hmm.
Now, Krzysztof, I wanted to expand a little bit on what you said, that for a startup founder, you're not young, you said, right? by the date of production, I understand, right? Not by the spirit.
By the spirit,
now,
yes, but by date of production, it's not young anymore.
But now, and here's an interesting, I think, question for those, let's say, guys that are more senior in their career and their professional experience, and that are probably thinking that they are, quote unquote, too old for this startup game. Would you say this was at any point in your VC relationship kind of journey and so on, a question or a hint of concern raised by the VCs just because you have your, I don't know, family responsibilities and you're not that mobile, that maybe they would openly say that, hey, Krzysztof, would you be able to invest 25 hours a day to this company? You know what I mean? Like anything of this type?
No, not really. But I think that building company is not about investing 24 hours a day. It's rather about right experience and doing right things at right time. So even when talking to our team, we do not expect them to work 16 hours. We expect them to be efficient. But of course, if there are certain terms to be met, they of course working more than 8 hours. But I still think that it is about doing the right things, in the right speed, and it is about efficiency and experience. And I think that in most of the cases, when talking to VCs, they would rather invest in a team of people that have some kind of a previous experience from building a company, rather than with like young people with a lot of enthusiasm, but with less experience. So this is not a barrier, I think. But this is cool. Something that but I think that, the right way of doing stuff is to be able to diversify the team. So to have younger people, older people, to have people from different cultural contexts and so on. So that's probably the key to success.
So guys, 30 plus or 40 plus or 50 plus, according to Krzysztof, there's still lots of opportunities for you as well. But now, speaking of trusted twin, I trust you will be doing fine with the project you have and with the being one of the few divers into blue ocean of big data sharing and security and all the other elements and layers that we discussed. Krzysztof, I wish you all the best, and I'm happy companies with the potential to disrupt global trends or global challenges and global technologies are being born in Central Eastern European region, and we are happy to support you. Thank you very much,
Alex,
for this.
Thank you for your time. And what I can only say that if there are people listening to your podcast willing to know more, then please, don't be shy. Just ask me on LinkedIn or on my Calendly, and I will gladly tell you about the architecture of the platform, everything you'd like to know. So, Alex, thanks a lot. It was, a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you and to be part of your great, work and podcast. So, have a nice day. See you.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye-bye.